Okay. So thank you so much for everyone who joined us today. Those of you probably already know the topic of today's presentation, which is how managing your data can add to your bottom line. My name is Melanie. Thanks. My name is Melanie Widman. I've been Petrosoft for about 5 years. I'm on the marketing side of the house, and I've also participated in the standards group for the petroleum industry, downstream industry called Connexus. So that is my background. And Vladimir, can you talk a little bit about yourself and also a little bit about Petrosoft?
Yeah, absolutely. So, excuse me, I believe I'm hearing myself, so if somebody can mute. Yep. So my name is Vladimir, and I'm spearheading the business development side of Petrosoft, as well as managing the sales team. For my 15 years here at Petrosoft provided end-to-end solution for downstream petroleum, as well as the retail. Our company is very involved in committees, nonprofit committees called Connexus, for back office and for POS standards management. Under my belt, there is over 1,000 store deployments done for our company of the back office, and Petrosoft was able to make a mark or dent in industry by publishing its first forecourt DC connection standards back in 2019, or that served as the first US-based FDC standard for Connexus, and now widely recognized by the forecourt companies and used as well. If anybody is looking for any type of information, and unfortunately, if you have to drop off, we encourage you to use this QR code on the screen to get additional information and get additional articles on the data sharing and possibilities of data adding to your bottom line. So as through the presentation, you will see this QR code on the multiple slides. Melanie?
Mm-hmm. So I actually really like this quote. A lot of people have heard this, that data is a new oil, but I don't think a lot of people really know the background to this and really what it really means, actually, from the person who originally said it. And I think it's fun too, because obviously this is, talks about oil, and a lot of us are in the industry, either owning a gas station or somehow within downstream petroleum. So anyways, I'll just read it. And so data is just like crude oil. It's valuable, but if unrefined, it cannot really be used. It has to be changed into gas, plastic, chemicals, etc., to create a valuable entity that drives profitable activity. So must data be broken down, analyzed for it to have value. The person who said this is Clive Humby, and why he's important to retail is because he was a consultant with Tesco, and he is the person who went in and analyzed Tesco's data back in the 90s and actually launched their first loyalty program. So the first grocery loyalty program was actually launched by Clive Humby and his group. Okay, so we like to get right to the punch or the punchline. So we're going to talk a little bit about 3 ways data can increase your bottom line. Some of these you may know. If you're new to the industry, of course, you probably don't know all of them, but these are typically 3 ways that people can really start working with their operations or with partners, data partners, to increase some sort of revenue inflows or their actual reduce their costs. So the first one, of course, is you can just sell your transaction data, and there's companies that will buy it, Nielsen, and then you sign up, of course, and Petrosoft would be the company that would enable the reporting. That's how we kind of fit into this. And then there's subsets of transactions, and that's what scan data is all about. And that's what actually is what's evolving actually in the industry right now, is that there's more manufacturers, there's a lot more people that are looking to get that data. And we'll talk a little bit about what's enabling that a little bit later on. And then Vladimir at the end will actually show you a slide from Connexus that kind of gives you an idea of who we know that are very interested in getting that data. And then, of course, as soon as you pull your data, your sales data, your promotions data, your ATG data, even from your USTs to figure out your fuel or your wet stock, then you can start making operational decisions based on that data. So those are the 3 ways, essentially, that you can increase your bottom line by looking at your data and trying to manage it a little bit better. And we're now going to talk a little bit about how you get there.
After actually collecting the data, What's also important is what kind of challenges come across with that. So three main challenges that we've seen that we noticed on managing and moving your data to the outside sources, right? To get that type of benefit that Melanie described in the previous slide. First one is the most common one. Time to set up, right? This first mile, it's extremely time consuming to make sure that your data is normalized, products are named properly, they categorized properly, inventory is done right, and only that type of data, like in the example of the statement on the first slide, it becomes refined and becomes valuable. Before that, you pretty much have bad data going in, and then the invalid insights coming out. So it's very time consuming to have somebody in the company or to dedicate a resource to make sure that this data is properly standardized and normalized. That's the first challenge that kind of hits you in the head right in the beginning. Then after that, in order to set up or connect to any type of the outside consumer, you need to hire outside consultant. Most of the time, you need to move this shift file or PGR's data into the completely different server where it has its own requirements, right? The proper format, the data needs to be delivered at certain time, and all of that, again, it becomes additional expense. And on top of all this, is ever changing need to be in compliance. We see as the market changes, we see different type of requirements coming from the federal institutions like the EMV, privacy, age verification. All of those items create an additional expense on your operations in order to properly maintain and exchange data formats. And what I want to do is I want to pass it back to Melanie and for her to talk about what's really changing in the industry to allow us this process to become more and more instant and applicable for the retailer. Melanie?
Okay, so a lot of things that have changed that may have been very time consuming and very, manual essentially in their nature. So one of the biggest things we run into, and that's a big showstopper for people, is actually doing the price book builds and then setting up their promotions, because it does take a lot of time to do. What we've been able to do is automate some of that and then also preload, which means that, we've been around for quite a while now. So we have a pretty substantial database of SKUs and descriptions of products, and we can even understand, what's popular in what location and that sort of thing. And then AI, just the idea that you can learn about your price book and your promotions, what's working, what's not, and start making decisions around that. The other thing is that a lot more companies have moved to the cloud, and we'll talk about this and show you a little bit about proof about this in a second. But basically, we're using a more unified way of communicating. So the idea that you have to spend a lot of money to integrate or to download your data, which historically a lot of petroleum POSs, people have a very hard time downloading their data. And then this next point is kind of, I believe, it's my opinion, the showstopper and the opinion of a lot of people in the industry, which that APIs, which are interfaces between systems that are driven basically because of this unified way of communication, because we've moved to the cloud, is skyrocketing. And this is kind of the proof and point of it. And again, APIs are essentially just a way, like a standard way of two companies, two software providers to communicate information between each other without ever having to go through IT. So there's lower costs, obviously, to integration. So I know you have fewer people that need to do the integration. It's a lot easier to maintain because you don't have to go to an IT person to build a special report, to build a special, connection between two databases, which also means it's faster development. If everyone knows the fields and the data and this and that has to happen, then it goes a lot faster. And again, it's a lot lower in terms of cost. And then, so there's also more endpoints. So the more people have APIs, obviously the more you can exchange data between different systems. So, and you can see how much it's grown over, since 2005. This is the last report we have from them, so it's obviously grown even more since then. And so this is really what's enabling everything, and that's why you'll hear APIs thrown here and there, because it really is changing how we change data, not just between your systems, but also now we can do stuff with mobile apps. Now we can start actually doing things that have never happened in the industry before, that just for us are just so exciting. And so the proof and point, this is the most exciting thing, believe it or not, that me myself have experienced within this industry, is Altria, who obviously is this huge company, decided to create APIs, which has done something pretty incredible. So a lot of the time with scan data, what you'll hear a lot about is, oh, you need to report, turn in your report, by a certain time. And then if there's errors in it, you need to resubmit your report. And then if there's still errors and you missed the deadline, tough luck, right? So a lot of that has to do with how things are set up at the beginning. So what Altria really solved for us and what we're helping them solve is that first mile, like when you're setting up your promotions. So it's really that point where you're setting up your promotions where a lot of errors actually happen. And so, and we have a couple case studies that go over, not only the stress around, did I submit this right? Not only the stress around, now I have to audit this, but then finding out after you've done everything, after you set up everything, after you spent all the time on it, then you find out there's all these errors, and guess what? You're not going to earn your rebate. You're not going to, get reimbursed for that. So this automation also, from Petrosoft's point of view, we like to keep people in control. So there'll always be that last button that you need to press to say, hey, go, I'm willing to accept this. And so what we really did is try to automate as much as possible using this API, and then just had that one click to say, hey, I'll accept this. Yes, I agree with this. So we're trying to solve for as many errors as possible. We're trying to automate as much as possible while still keeping the operator or the owner, in control of what they're willing to accept.
Just to add to this point,
Mm-hmm.
we, Petrosoft, have been working with helping customers to produce the scan data reports for additional benefits for a number of years. But what we noticed, there was every time we'd had to go through onboarding process, it would become very time consuming for the customer to set up all the promotion, to stay in compliance, and even to properly manage the promotions. We're talking about being educated. So you have we've seen the documents of 20 to 30 pages on this quarter's promotions that somebody has to review in order to be opted into the number of the promotion they have to do. So the amount of money and education that put in just to get started was, I would say, was definitely a point of concern.
Mm-hmm.
And by Altria having all this additional information, they had a number of middlemen in the middle, right? You have to train the sales rep needs to train a retailer, and as the information passes on through this chain, usually you have human factor involved. Through automation, this first mile was, I believe, that was one of the pioneered by Altria, right? Where they were able to deliver promotions and complete promotions, standardized and normalized, without a retailer or their own operation spending time on education. They created a system where any type of retailer were able to request it, receive it in completely normalized format, and pass it on to the to whatever system they're using, whether it's back office or any other system. And what it did, on the other hand, it gave proper start, valid promotions that will allow the retailer to be competitive on the market, right? So giving the best offer on the day of the promotion for the customer that walks into the store is the goal of any business that has especially foot and traffic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on another hand, it also produced the reports that are submitted back to Altria or any other third-party companies like Nielsen to be able to get the data in the format and normalized that could be consumed and then well valued.
Mm-hmm.
So we see Altria as one of the pioneers for not only concerning about the scan data, but also helping retailers to get through this first mile with close to zero expense on their operations.
Vladimir, can you explain a little bit how it just a little bit technically works on our side? What it would actually look like?
Yeah. So now there's three pieces, correct? So first, and this was slide shows in step number one. This is where Petrosoft Cloud puts the request on the back end and sends a request with all the data for promotions to the Altria. On the other hand, Altria responds with the list of the promotion specific to this assigned retailer. Just like in Altria's case, every retailer has its own unique store number and account number. And Altria is, and this communication, by the way, is secure. Altria, on the other hand, sends us on an average about 38 promotions per store that we receive, and that get posted in GUI, which is our customer interface, where customer can easily look through the promotions in a format that's very well consumed. So, it's somewhere where it talks about this is type of discounts that offered, this is the type of benefit that both retailer and the consumer gets, and it's a one-click process for opting in. It's simply one click for customer. We make sure that they receive this promotion. We make sure that they approve this promotion in the store, because this is a business decision, whether you want to proceed with following promotion or you don't have to. With this opting in with the one click, what happens next? Customer is no more involved. Our system automatically puts following promotions that a retailer opted in and sends them directly to the POS system. So technically, the only exposure of this whole complicated process is only on the step two, where customer reviews, make sure that this promotion is what he wants to proceed for the next quarter. And with simply one click, all of the POS systems and the number of the locations are sent directly and automatically, and they are starting on the date of the promotion start. So that way, any retailer, you don't have to worry about validating, no matter who is your price book person. You don't have to validate that it was done right. You don't have to validate that the promotion made it to the system, and that gives an opportunity for your own stores to start the fresh month with proper promotions from the day number one. One of the first use cases was Market 24. About 3 years ago, when we tried to launch the scan data program, it was challenging for us. We hired a person, price book person, just to make sure that we are in compliance for all those promotions. And this is our own Market 24, our own stores. And every single month, it was a headache for us. We would assume that the promotions were right, but then our rep would come in and say, you know what, something is off. As wasn't working properly, so we had a different operational procedure to ensure it, that from the day one of the month it starts properly. After we launched it, the 8 hours dedicated every single beginning of the month were now available for this other person to do something else. So now first off, quality of the data is better. We set up all of the items at the same time. So we don't have to think about, there's a new item. We have to make sure it's set up. Otherwise, it's not going to scan. Everything was fed to the system, to the back office, all at once. And we're compliant without any human involvement. Completely eliminated the risk of human factor. And when we compared back to back, actually, after analysis, we noticed that even experienced, as we believe she is very talented and experienced price book rep that we had, you end up making normal mistakes. We're about 4 to 6 mistakes per month for the promotions that we thought that is not happening. So again, this is an opportunity and compliance factor that was completely relieved from our operations. And therefore, I believe that was a good use case for any type of operations within US who is using Altria. First off, I guess what we are seeing and what we'd love to see more and more, there is a lot of third-party companies that act as consumer of the possible data exchange. Also, they act as a trade programs like Nielsen, for example, they not necessarily they don't consume it themselves. They buy your data or the retailer data, and then they resell it. Now, usually the companies that they resell data is usually manufacturers, right? With this API, we have ability to cut this middleman out and give you an opportunity to share your data, not with the trade programs, but to share your data with the manufacturers that you want to work with, and then go back and negotiate the proper incentive for you to bring in the product in the store and get more and more benefit out of the data sharing capabilities. So that's what we see a lot in the market. We see other companies are interested in scan data, and we see more and more companies are actually helping with this first mile of onboarding, because retailers are there to make money, to move the product, to meet and greet the customer, and all of this has to be worked on with a part. The way we see it is they need to be worked out with the partners like us and with the technology solution, but it shouldn't overcomplicate your retail operations.
So we talked a little bit about case studies, and these are the two case studies we're talking about. Market 24. It's interesting. What they figured out was that they weren't actually getting all the SKUs that were available for promotional opportunities. So suddenly they got a full list, and they did reduce their time in terms of their program for 12 hours in terms of the time that it takes them to set up and to do the reporting and to do the auditing and everything else. And then on the EJ Pope side or Handy Mart side, they had a lot of positive experiences too. Some of it just had to do, again, with saving time. And then for them too, the audit process is just so different people would do different roles. And so when this is Corey Robinson would go in and look at everything, he just was very secure that, hey, he can launch his programs, all the data is good. And then he reduced his time as well. So they have a little bit of a different point of view. But they're both interesting case studies if you want to see what their experience was. Well, Corey also he joined us on a webinar, and so we actually have a video too where he talks a little bit about his experience, which is it's very nice to hear from our customers and see what it's actually like to do all this, and how we can help out going forward. On the page 2, there was a QR code and a link to the scan data. We will be distributing this slide deck later on, but feel free to, just send us a question, visit our site, and we do have other, different documents and different tools that you can use to kind of figure out, where you're at and what you want to do with your program or your data going forward. So I appreciate you, Vladimir, joining me today, and I appreciate all you guys being here as well.
All right. And if there is anything else that you guys want us to address, I encourage you guys go back to the QR code and fill in applications. Petrosoft will be continuing to do more and more sharing and different type of webinars on what's going on in the market, as well as what kind of tools. Oh, we have questions. All right, awesome.
He just said thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we do have a webinar coming up on the 29th, which gets a little bit more in the nitty-gritty. I know everyone knows Altria's programs are changing. As of April 2nd, the 2020 program's going away. Their new program's coming up, which is a major change. And so we're actually going to be taking a deeper dive and going into real numbers related to what this looks like, a before and after to that program, and the different steps and the technology, like where it actually maps to, like what you're going to actually need to kind of enable all the different levels, because there's actually 3 new levels. So it'll be interesting to go over.
All right, we have first question.
Where's a question? Chat.
All right, so is there an additional cost to use this? So thank you, good question. To give you a quick answer, there is only one product that you have to opt in on Petrosoft side, and this product is called Scan Data. And Scan Data product includes all data sharing connection points for existing right now, for example, Altria, for RJR Reynolds, for Nielsen, as well as in the future. The way we see it is we believe that we're retailer doesn't necessarily need to buy our back office system. We believe that you could use any other back office system, or maybe you can operate the store without a back office system, which is, I believe it's completely possible, right? And the only product that enables data sharing capabilities will, with all other trade platforms as well as the manufacturers, scan data, and that's the only product you have to buy. Now it's structured very aggressively as far as cost structure for it, because we believe that this is a gateway product. We see this as an opportunity, and as we see a lot of different retailers have different architecture at their sites, we don't want for our solution to be invasive. So if you have a certain type of operational function that you use, we don't ask you to rip completely your architecture and put our back office, we could put our POS system in there. All we're asking you to do is an opt-in on scan data solution. I believe right now the cost is $29 a month to store. So obviously there is a commercial agreement to this, right? But it's the solution encompasses all data exchange plugins at the same time.
Yeah, we also have discounting for annual, and we're actually going to be running a promotion. So
good question. Thank you.